I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Before I bring on the guest, just a quick update about the election. I just saw an update with the president's point man, Rudy Giuliani, and he says, listen, in Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, there's enough ballots, not the electronic part, with Sidney Powell or Amistad, just the ballots, which is what Rudy Giuliani, illegal ballots, there's enough to overturn the election because the small lead that Joe Biden has in every state. The illegal ballots, for example, illegal aliens voted in out west, and people from California, out in Nevada. You had all kinds of overvoting, overcounting, no matching of signatures in all the states. There was no Republican or no meaningful Republican oversight of opening the ballots to see if they were signed or they were legitimate or whatever. Okay, it's the overarching two overarching strings that the Democrats did not follow election law put out by the state legislature, and that's in Article 2 of the Constitution. State legislators do federal elections, president, senator, Congress. Didn't follow the law, and they didn't allow, and one of the things they didn't do was didn't allow uniformly any oversight of the mail-in ballots by Republicans. And then there's all kinds of other things. They didn't follow the law. In Georgia, they're not validating signatures, and you can't make this up on your own. Only the legislature can change the way voting is done in that state, and they did not follow the law. With all that said, for example, there was a ruling on Friday where, the 11th Circuit, a three-judge panel told Donald Trump that, he threw his petition to stop the certification and bring in all this fraud. No. Ballots are what decide elections, not briefs. Well, that's going to the Supreme Court. Ultimately, all this is going to the Supreme Court. And one other thing I wanted to bring up, and nobody has brought this up, and that Giuliani, who prosecuted organized crime, one of the tools is RICO, racketeering, which is groups of people getting together to commit crime. Giuliani's an expert in that. He's talking about all the cases coming together at some point. I think he's building a RICO case. We'll find out. That's going to also be in the Supreme Court. And we're not even talking about Sidney Powell, who's doing great work on the voting machines and all the fraud, or the Amistad project. They're doing unbelievable, but just the amount of ballots can overturn the election. Why is that important? Because our next guest, Bo Polny of Gold2020Forecast.com, says Trump's going to be president. That's all there's to it. And so just to let you know that the evidence is there, that in just this one section, according to Rudy Giuliani, former federal prosecutor, former mayor of New York, says that the whole thing can be overturned. Bo Polny, let me bring you on here. One of your important things that you said was, listen, all the near-term losses, wins, little victories here, there. Forget about that. The important thing is all goes to the Supreme Court. Talk about that.
Greg, pleasure to be here again. Thank you.
Thanks for being on, too.
Thanks. So what I can say is, we're living in biblical times, Greg, and we're about to see biblical things go down. God is in control of this. God is love, God is judge, and God is about to get involved. We're about to see a moment in time of history. When we go back to the time of Moses, and the Red Sea, everything looked bleak and horrible. You had Pharaoh's army charging Moses and the Israelites, and they're pinned up against the Red Sea. All of a sudden, God gets involved, and what happens? Within a short period of time, the Red Sea opens, they cross, and then God closes the sea, and Pharaoh's army is no more. That's what's coming. I don't care what happens in the near term, short term, right now with these little mini lawsuits, because ultimately, Greg, this is going to the Supreme Court. It's going to end up in the Supreme Court, and it's going to be the Supreme Court that's going to make the final ruling on this, and it is going to be devastating, absolutely devastating to the Democratic Party and even some Republicans. But it is going to be horrible. The system as you know it of the Democrats and the Republican Party, everything is about to blow up, and it's going to be awesome. Why? Because God is in control and he is in charge, and he is not going to let the United States fall to the evil ones.
And just so people understand where you're coming from, a lot of people will say, well, in Revelation, it says that the mark of the beast comes, and no man shall buy or sell, and whatever. And what you've told me is that they're pushing this up. They're not doing. This is not God's timeline. They're all jamming this thing down our throat, and this is why God's going to beat this down. Ultimately, Revelation
that
will.
is correct.
Actually, we'll talk about that. Ultimately, yes, Revelation will be, but they're way, way early. That's what you're saying.
Correct. That's like in the time of Jesus was on this earth, right? And have demon-possessed people would scream at him, "You're not supposed to be here yet. What are you doing?" Right? And Jesus would tell them, "Be quiet." Right? Same thing right now. The evil one's trying to take control early. God has allowed the evil one time, but this is not his time. He's early. He's trying to take dominion of the earth sooner than he's allowed, and God's about to squelch it. So he's given a window of time where he's allowed to do, because remember, God wrote the story from the beginning to the end. So he's already got the story written out, and this is not his timeline. This is absolutely not Satan's timeline right now. This is the Trump cycle timeline. This is God's timeline. He does give him a time window, and we're going to cover that today, Greg, in the presentation. I will show you where Satan's timeline comes in to be, but it is not now. It will not be now, and it doesn't matter what anything and everything evil tries to do, they will fail, because you cannot take on God. Man and evil cannot take on God and prosper. It's not going to happen. It will not happen. And God is going to make sure it doesn't happen. And it will happen in God's time, not in Satan's time.
Yeah, I told my people that watch my weekly news wrap up, listen, people voted for Trump, but they really voted for God and Jesus. I mean, Trump is the field general. God is the kingmaker. Trump's just doing what he's told.
That's right.
I think people just people know that. I think the people that vote are voting for God.
Well, remember back in the time,
Trump's not our savior. Jesus Christ is our savior. God's in charge. Jesus is in charge. Trump's just David. He's just doing what he's supposed to be doing.
He's a king, just like the kings of Israel. Remember, God was there for the time of Israel, but what happened was eventually Israel wanted a real person, a real entity on the ground, not just God speaking through the prophet. So then God brought on Saul, right? And he was anointed by the prophet, and he became the first king, right? And then following that was King David. But the point was, Trump is nothing more than a king, as in the time of Israel. You had kings, and this is, we're going to talk about this as well too, but believe it or not, Trump is we know that Trump is the 45th.
Yes.
But if you go back to the time of Israel, which we're going to cover in a second in the presentation, Obama was the 44th president, and there were 44 kings in Israel in the time of Israel. And then Israel fell. Okay, so there wasn't a 45th king. Just like Trump being the 45th, he's the end of the United States. So he's the new king of the new era that we have talked about, Greg. So the new era we're in, Trump is a part of the new era, taking us into God's timeline, God's window. So we're going to talk about all this in the presentation, but Trump is the 45th president, and Israel never had 45 kings. They only had 44. And that's why, my presentation starts off with the first Thanksgiving. The first Thanksgiving is going to be next year, November 2021, in the new era.
And that's something else I wanted to. That's a huge call in February, and I was like, new era of time. What? Say what? New era of time. Before this pandemic was even a pandemic, before anybody knew that this whole face mask and all this massive unemployment and the 38% drop, which you said would be about 35. Nenner said it would be about 40. Close enough. 38. That's pretty good. Also the Ruth Bader Ginsburg call, which was something epic is going to happen September 18th, Rosh Hashanah. Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And we just saw a ruling in the Supreme Court where Amy Coney Barrett was the 5th vote for religious freedom. Thank you, Judge Roberts, for voting against religious freedom. But she was the 5th vote saying, you can't do that. I mean, Gorsuch is out saying, you can't trump the Constitution over over religious freedom over pandemic, basically. So, I mean, that was another monster call, but this new era of time call, I mean, dude, that, that we are clearly in a new era of time. I
Well,
mean, we're
here's the
now.
best part, Greg, because that new era of time, it comes with specific time points. The era of time was taken from Noah's cycle, with the time of Noah and the Great Flood, okay? So those time points, which I referenced, which we've watched now transpire, there's one more time point coming, Greg, and that's next April, this coming April of 2021 of next year. So that cycle's not over. So all I can tell you is, historically, we've looked at the cycles and we've seen incredible things happen at these critical biblical time points. These were God's time points written within the Torah of how it relates to Moses and the time window. Now, this is not, again, we're not relating it to Moses. We're relating to the timelines illustrated within the Torah that talks to the exact how many days it took to certain time points. So the next critical time point is when Noah steps off the ark, and that's the time point of the 26th of April 2021. And
That's Noah. People don't realize that Noah was on the ark for what, 9 months?
For 370 days.
Oh, over a year.
Months, it was a year and a few days.
Wow.
So a biblical year is 360 days. So he was on the ark for 360 plus 10 days. So a year and 10 days.
Oh, that's right. This was your marking point, 2020, April 21st. Where oil, another big call.
Right,
oil goes to zero and expires at a contract at negative, I don't know, $38. Another huge call said something epic was going to happen, just like something epic was going to happen on the 18th of September. Bam! So, okay, let's get into your presentation.
What started in April with oil going to zero of 2020, what started in 2020 ends in 2021 April. So this is a year and 10-day cycle that is coming to a completion. So, and what's coming is going to be awesome next year. And boy, is it going to get crazy, because we are again living in biblical time points. When God gets involved, expect the impossible to become possible. And we are going to see just incredibly amazing biblical things transpire between now and going into December, then January, February, March, and April. So there's 5 months to go, and boy, is it going to be good.
Let's get with your very first program here. We're going to lay in the billboards. You got another big free presentation for people, and this one is the first Thanksgiving 2021. Let's start on slide 1, and let's just kind of walk through some of this. You got some big predictions on gold and silver, and Donald Trump. I just laid out at the beginning of this how it looks like he's going to get in. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. There's clearly a 5-4, and it might be a 6-3. A couple of neurons may touch together and might say, well, it's not going to do any good anyway. I might as well vote on the right side of history. But anyway, let's start with your 2021. Start with the first slide, and you're calling it First Thanksgiving 2021. This is the first Thanksgiving in the new era of time next year at about this time at Thanksgiving.
That is exactly correct, Kirk. That's exactly it. That's what I've basically come to realize when I put these presentations together. I sit there and I think, and at nighttime these things hit me. And this presentation came up when the pieces came together. It blew my mind. So it's going to be very exciting to go through this presentation. It can be found on my website, and definitely on your website as well at the after section interview. So please go to the link, click it, get the link. Follow along as we speak, because the slides are awesome. I believe so, at least. I've done everything I can to make it clear and concise and simple. It's a 39-page presentation. So let's get through it here.
And you can also, you can blow it up too. You can, if it's the writing is small, you can, there's a way to blow it up. So if you're having trouble following along and freezing it in this interview, you can go to the page, open it up in another window. It's in the after the interview section on usawatchdog.com. Okay, it won't be on YouTube. Go to the after the interview section, usawatchdog.com. It'll be right up there in the after the interview section. But let's start with the first Thanksgiving 2021. You kind of explained this a little bit, but it's the end of an era. Let's start there.
Right. So let's start on page one. The bottom line is we've got a 400-year cycle that just ended. The start of actually ended on the 11th of November, which is when the Mayflower came to the United States. So 400 years later was this past 2 weeks ago, November 11th of 2020. It's a 400-year cycle. And remember, biblically, you got 40 days and 40 nights. 4 is such a huge number. It's a number of massive of testing and then change. So we just completed a 400-year cycle, and just this past day or two ago was the last Thanksgiving of the old era. That's the 26th of this November, this past month of this month, was the last Thanksgiving. It was the 399th Thanksgiving. And it is over. Next Thanksgiving will be the new Thanksgiving in the new era. And how amazing is this? God works in seasons. So if you look at the season of April, when this timeline, when the new era officially comes online, that's the season of spring. That's when God's going to plant the seeds for his new spirit. It's going to power up the earth. And then you've got the next Thanksgiving of next year is the first harvest. So what was the first harvest of the real the initial Thanksgiving was when the Mayflower landed. It was the first successful corn harvest. So they landed a year later. They had the first successful corn harvest. What's coming in 2021 November is the first successful true spiritual harvest on this earth. So we again are living in really, really exciting times. We get to page 3, and we talk about the golden goose. What is the golden goose? The golden goose is Israel. Everything from day one has always been about Israel. That is the promised land. That's the most fought over piece of land on earth. We know that. Think about how many wars and how many battles been fought over Israel and in Israel all these thousands of years. It's the most fought over land. And we talked about this too with there only being 44 kings and then it fell. So again, Israel being the promised land, I find it absolutely fascinating. On page 4, we've got Obama just published a book in November, this past month, a couple weeks ago, on the 400th year anniversary of the Mayflower. And his book is called A Promised Land, not The Promised Land, A Promised Land. That's extremely important because Israel is the promised land. It's not a promised land. A promised land is what they're trying to bring to Israel.
A new world order.
That's correct.
All part of the new world order.
Exactly. So we
communism.
Go to page 5. Okay. So we've got page 5. We've got awakening versus reset. Okay. When God moves his hand, he wakes up the world. Well, his goal is to wake up the world to those that want to wake up and see the truth. So truth is going to be exposed, and we're going to have what's called a great awakening. That is what the evil ones are trying to stop, because if they get their way and Biden continues, they're going to push for the great reset, which is man-made. The man-made reset is a push for the global agenda, and that is what they're pushing for. They do not want the Great Awakening, because the Great Awakening can be compared to a set of dominoes, right? You got a dominoes lining up the whole room with thousands of dominoes. Think of those dominoes as people, right? Guess what happens when that first domino goes down, Greg?
They all go down.
That's right. Okay, that's
this is going to end. Yeah, this is this whole. I just want to kind of jump in here with you and be on the same screen at the same time. As a investigative correspondent, I did a lot of frauds. Okay, and frauds end quickly. And this election fraud was a whopper. The Mac Daddy of election fraud, the biggest election fraud, certainly in the history of the country. I think the history of the world. I mean, they went at this ballots and dead people and electronic and vote switching. And it's a fact that all these votes went out of the country to Spain and Germany. And it is fraud on a level that is unparalleled in human history. And I say when this thing ends, it's going to end quickly and ugly. What say you?
Oh, absolutely. This is like back to the beginning of this presentation. This is like the time of Moses, when everything looked horrible. All of a sudden, it changed,
Yeah.
and it didn't take long. Okay. So just understand that we're talking, these are biblical times. I'm repeating that because we are in biblical times. This is a war, this is a battle between God versus the gods. Now, let me explain the difference, okay? Who is God? God is Yahweh. He's the Adonai, and his son is Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. It's a trinity, okay? That is God. Now, who's he taking on? Who's the battle against? It's the gods, lowercase g with an S. Okay? Who are the gods? They're the fallen ones. They're the ones that were thrown out of heaven for their rebellion against God, capital G.
They're the
Now,
pretenders. They are
they're the pretenders. Right.
yeah.
And then so taking it further, here on earth, we've seen a bunch of movies as growing up. We've seen, we've heard about Greek mythology, right? Ask yourself a question. How real is it? Is it really mythology, or is it just history?
Oh, that's a good point, man.
Think about it, Greg.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to, this is really powerful because the stuff I'm going to show you here, it just blew me away when the pieces came together here. Now, is it history or is it mythology? You have to ask yourself the question. And if it is history, who is the Greek god of the gods of Greek mythology? It's Zeus.
Yeah.
Zeus, right? And so that will be equivalent to Satan, correct? Because Satan is the king of the gods of the fallen gods. He was a leader. So Zeus would be him. Now, if you take it further, where does Zeus live, right? So in Greek mythology, he lives in Greece. This is really important because this is going to tie in a little later in the presentation. He lives in Greece on Mount Olympus, correct?
Yes.
So again, just pieces of the puzzle,
yes.
But so this is kind of what we're battling against. This is God, capital G, versus gods, plural, lowercase g. And so what is their agenda? Since Satan was led on the earth through Adam and Eve, there's two basically agendas here. On page 6 we're at. Destroy the constitution that was founded under God. Number 2 is remove God the Father, Yahweh, Adonai, and his son Jesus and the Holy Spirit from America. That is their agenda, period. And then if they do that, they hijack, and what is their plan? It's to hijack the U.S. elections. And if you hijack the election, you ultimately are hijacking the most powerful nation in the world, which then gives you control of the world, Greg. So that is the agenda that these people have, is to control everything. And it's to get the promised land. But before you get the promised land, which is Israel, you got to get the United States, the most powerful nation, guarding it, protecting it.
And this is not going to happen. This is too early.
Right. So now we're going to go to page 7 because I'm going to answer that exact question you've got right there.
Right.
So I'm going to this is actually really critical because this is I referenced 2 prophets in this presentation. The first one being Lois Vogel Sharp of King of Glory Ministries. These are 7 points on page 7 that she has referenced. The word of God. Here they are. Our country has been following the evil one for generations. They have demonized Trump, but he has been ordained for the second term to keep America safe. The USA will be the safest place in the years ahead as much of the world turns to Antichrist. Big tech will be crushed. The United States will not be handed over to the evil one. The presidency that the media told you is dead is about to come back to life.
Boom.
Number 7.
The facts show that, Bo. That's why I did that long thing at the beginning. The facts are clearly, you look at this thing that happened in Pennsylvania and Gettysburg. There's no proof. There's layers and layers and
Right.
buckets
And
and
it's the dominoes, right? And they're
yeah,
all still standing right now, Greg.
yeah.
The dominoes are still
I think
standing.
they're teetering.
They got days left on, right? They're shaking, they're
Ah,
wobbling right now, but they're standing and they're wobbling, okay? They're shaking in their boots. And then number 7 was, we will go back to truth and the Constitution. So
yeah.
those were the points. And guess who stands between the evil one and his goals, Greg? His name is Trump. And repeat Trump and Pence together, trumpet. Trump Pence, it ends up being trumpet. The point is, all of this was ordained, planned from the beginning, and you've got Trump standing in the way of evil's agenda. Now, this is one of the coolest things that I think I can talk about in terms of how God's going to do this. So this, again, page 7. As good as the evil one's plans appear to be, only God, the Father, the creator of everything, holds, think of a poker deck. God holds the wild card.
Yeah.
And he can pull it anytime he wants to get whatever result he wants. So as much as they fight, as much as they lie, cheat, and steal, they don't hold the wild card, Greg. And that's the beauty about God.
And I want to back up to this September 18th thing. I mean, the day this September 18th, you take a look at YouTube and you look at my site and, 3, 4 o'clock, well, looks like Bo Polny was wrong. Nothing epic happened on the 18th of September, Rosh Hashanah. Nothing happened 4:30, 5:30. Well, you've got some explaining to do, Greg Hunter. Nothing happened 6:30, 7:30. Nothing happened 8 o'clock. Well, hey, Greg, what happened? What was supposed to be at the 8:30 RBG announced dead? Epic?
Greg, I don't want. Greg,
Epic?
I don't
Was
want
that epic?
Greg, that's epic, but the glory goes to God. I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
Glory
You're
goes
using
to God. He gave me the dates. He showed me how to do it, but the glory is his because this is his time clock. He's planned it all. It's his agenda, and I'm just perpetuating the word. I'm showing you the timelines. I'm analyzing his timelines, but it's his glory. Just like this April is going to be another key time point for God's glory on this earth.
And who does Trump put in? Amy Coney Barrett. And what does she rule? First major ruling, religious freedom. You can't let the rioters riot and protest and do whatever they want by the thousands, and then tell people you can't worship God. Boom. And of course, you have the evil Cuomo, the murderer of old people in nursing homes. The evil Cuomo. Oh, this is insignificant. Really? Oh, okay. God didn't do this.
And then going back, Cuomo, just a quick thing. There's been a few prophets that have actually called Cuomo, compared him to Herod in the killing of the children. So, that's actually, and I would hate, Greg, for God the Father to call me out on the evil side, and he's called out Cuomo, and he's also called out the governor Newsom of California, and a few others by name.
Soros.
Oh, that I would not want to be on the other.
He called out George Soros.
On the other side of that one, Greg.
Amanda Grace said
yes.
Said George.
Yes.
I was like, wow, we're getting deep here. Which you can't. And Fox is so evil. I mean, they're so pompous. I mean, they're getting creamed. As all mainstream media, people are like, oh, well, the media, I said this on my wrap up, oh, they're just not doing their homework. No, they're evil. They're participating in a fraud. They're helping to cover this up. They're seditious. Period. They're not that, they can't be that stupid. It's too stupid to be stupid.
And they're one of the dominoes.
So let's go back here to your presentation. And we are now on page 8. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah. The Kraken.
So this one's great. So you've got, you got Sidney Powell calling, I'm going to release the Kraken, right? The phrase release the Kraken came from Zeus, okay, which would be equivalent to Satan. It's a movie that in Greek mythology has released the Kraken. What does it mean, okay? Well, it's Zeus's nuclear option to teach unruly and disrespectful humans a lesson that they would never forget. What happened to Pharaoh when he wanted Moses' son dead? What did God do at the time of Passover? He turned the words of Pharaoh back on his own family, and he killed his own son for saying that against Moses. He turned the words back on Pharaoh. So we're about to see release the Kraken. Those were the words of Satan back on him. So we're a divine timeline that we're sitting in, and this is going to be epic as the unruly and the disrespectful humans, those are the evil ones and their agenda. Those are the ones we're watching on TV right now. Boy, are they going to get a lesson that they will never forget.
They are going nuts. They are going.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama's out there. Republicans. What's his name? Tom Ridge. Oh, what he's doing to our election integrity. Well, no, stop it. Your election fraud. What Trump is doing to your election fraud. We're just supposed to choke all this down. Stop it.
Well, and then
listen. I think the Secretary of States of these states that did this fraud, they should all be impeached. I think some of the governors should be impeached. I think Kemp in Georgia should be impeached. He should be impeached for allowing this and having side deals and basically going around the law of the legislature. Again, the elections are done by state legislatures, and they couldn't get any of this thing through state legislature. Wolf, Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania, tried to get this through the Republican legislature. They went, no, you can't do that. You can't, no, you can't. So he got it through the kangaroo Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And these people are going to go down hard. I mean, the person that's going to bring them down isn't Donald Trump. Oh, yes, he's going to be the president. But it's
Greg,
God,
this
Jesus.
Is going to be a lesson that they will never forget, Greg. They will never forget what's about to happen to them. And this takes us actually to the next page, which ties in directly to what we talked about on page 9. We're going to talk about bloodlines. This is extremely important because I don't know a lot of the world knows about this, but let's talk about the elite family bloodlines. Evil's most recent plan can be traced back to Nazi Germany and Operation Paperclip that was funded by the CIA to bring forth ideals in complete opposition to the Word of God. It began with brainwashing children to anti-Semitic beliefs and attitudes towards the Jewish nation who believed in God. Present-day anti-Semitism is actually anti-God and is being coordinated by the Antichrist, perpetuated by the global elite who fell to temptation and has continued up through their family lineage for generations. This lineage can be seen through most and almost all past presidents, through Hollywood and England's royalty. There's a slide and there is a link. Every president, aside from two, which would have been Buren and then Trump, have direct bloodline links to the King of England, King John of England.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy, Greg. This is the stuff that, this is the hidden stuff that you're not supposed to know. And then let's talk about page 10, temptation. This is incredibly powerful because Jesus is beautiful. He's amazing. I love Jesus and what he does and his words. His words are like swords. Check this out. So he's in the desert for 40 days. And right near the end, Satan's tempting him. And at the very end, on page 10, he says, and he shows him the earth, and he says, all these things can be of thee, of yours, if you only bow down and worship me. Matthew 4:9. And guess what Christ says to him? Get behind me, Satan. Think about what that means. It's not yours to give because it's mine. Get behind me. Those were Christ's words. He goes, get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shall thy serve. So Satan's giving away the earth and all power because it's all about power. He's giving it away, but it's never his to give away.
It's like somebody selling their rental property.
Yeah, or actually selling gold 500 times over with paper contracts, or selling. It's just about it's a facade. Everything's a facade. So now let's get to page 12.
I do want to say that Matthew 28:18, one of my favorite Bible verses. I mean, this is up there with God so loved the world and let there be light, which was all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me, says Jesus Christ.
That's correct.
All,
All
not
power,
some.
yes. And
All.
that's because he died on the cross and he was resurrected, and now all power resides in Christ. But this is the problem. At this moment in time, if you've accepted Christ, you're part of Christ's kingdom, okay, then yes, all power resides in you because through the name of Christ. However, evil's still on this earth. That's what we're going to later in the presentation, but we talked about this in the past, Greg, how evil and the good sides, basically the wheat and the tares are still, the wheat and the weeds are still here. So evil and the good ones, so the wheat and the tares are going to rise together. So evil's here. We're watching it right
Oh, yeah,
now.
we're watching it.
We're watching mythology play out right in front of us, right now. So now let's get to page 12. And and the basis, the title is "The War Will Be Won in the Supreme Court."
Amen, brother.
Okay. Now this is the words of prophet Amanda Grace. Okay, she's definitely worth listening to. Okay,
Yeah.
Here are 3 key points. Page 12. Key pieces of evil's plan are being exposed, and his plan will soon begin to completely fall apart, causing infighting between the plotters as they turn on one another to protect their own hides.
Hey, let's just stop right there for a second. That clearly is happening. That clearly is happening, and she made this prophecy a while back with the Gettysburg hearing set on with all this evidence and affidavits and experts and all this stuff coming, all the lawsuits filing on with all more evidence and ballots and electronic, and now hearings going to happen in Arizona and Michigan, and a court case, judges going to hear the fraud in Nevada. It's all coming apart. It is clearly coming apart, and the fraud, as I mentioned earlier, is stupefying. The fraud coming out is unbelievable. All the votes, that's the electronics, all your votes got counted over in Spain and in Germany. You got to be kidding me. Yep, but yet it did happen, and that is confirmed. So all this is coming out right now. So just to let you know she didn't make this up in the last couple of days. This is a few weeks ago. When it looked like, Biden won. And she also talked about a pin. And I thought, you know the truth when you hear it, right? And I thought, frauds and quickly.
Right.
Pin,
that's just
boom.
Like the time of Moses, right? And the Red Sea, like a pin.
Yeah.
Doesn't take long. Justices, Supreme Court justices, will rule in God's will, stopping evil's rebellion against God's laws.
You may get a Sotomayor to side when they see the fraud. You may get a Sotomayor, a Kagan, Roberts, or 1 or 2 or 3. It might be 9-0. They might look at this and go, woo, I'm not going to vote no on this. This is stunning evidence of fraud.
Yeah, well, we'll see. 9 is a very powerful. It's the epitome of all numbers. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't know, but
They have been 9-0 decisions with the Supreme Court, minus Coney Barrett. She hasn't been on a 9-0 decision yet. But there have been other 9-0 decisions, which I was surprised that some of these, with all the other, liberal quote unquote judges voted in a few cases that I was kind of stunned over. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so then get to number point 3, page 12 again. The iron veil of secrecy will be pulled back, and the shadow government in multiple countries, including the Vatican, will be exposed, and their books will be opened for all the world to see.
So, you know what? When I heard this also too separately, let me come on and get in here with you. And to me, it doesn't look like the Antichrist gets all this power. Gets power. It will happen in Revelation.
In God's time, not in his
But it's
time.
a weakened Antichrist. It's a weakened power, I think. You may get your power, and it's only for a short amount of time in Revelations.
Well, yes, but we'll talk about that's going to. I'm actually showing. I'm going to show the timelines of when I think this is going to come to pass. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes.
All right.
So that's some of the prophecy stuff, which directly lines up. Because I'm not a prophet, I'm a analyst of time. I'm a messenger. Okay, but when you line up the word of prophets with cycle timing, with analyzing God's timeline, the overlay is like a beautiful glove.
And actually, news stories that are happening now.
Oh,
I mean, it is this is happening. This is coming apart.
It is, and now let's. This is my specialty.
Okay.
Let's talk about timelines. Okay, so we've talked about before Rosh Hashanah being September 18th, and so the 370. So page 13, the 370 day mark when Noah steps off the ark would be April 26th of 2021. Now, a little side note here, there is a possibility, because remember, cycles are timelines, and cycles can overplay each other. So you could have a secondary cycle going on right now. The secondary cycle, interestingly enough, if we do the Noah's timeline, the secondary cycle would have started on November 4th for a second Great Flood Noah's timeline. And we'll know if that, again, this is page 14, we'll know if that comes to be if something critically important or really important happens. The election was on the 3rd of November. The door would have been closed on the 4th of November, and that would take the 40 days and 40 nights to December 13th. So if there is a second Noah cycle in play, we'll know because something of importance will happen potentially on December 13th.
That's the day before they're required to vote to begin their deliberation on the Electoral College.
Exactly. Yeah. So I find that, again, timelines are interesting. So we'll see. But regardless, let's go back to to the initial cycle. So the initial Noah cycle takes us to an endpoint of April 26, 2021. Now, when I discovered this second page, the second part, which is on page 15, this blew my mind, because what is the probability of this happening? It's zero unless God's involved. Then there's a plan and an agenda. 2021 Red Sea moment is coming to the Democratic Party and some members of the Republican Party, the deep state, the evil one, his subservient elite, and their family lineage are all about to experience God's judgment for their rebellion. Just as the Pharaoh's army was suddenly destroyed when God closed the sea on his army in the time of Moses. So this is important to listen to. Those that survive will be stripped of their power and forced underground to rebuild and regroup. Because remember, they're not allowed in God. It's God's time. They're coming in early, and God's not going to let it happen. So they're going to go underground. They're going to rebuild. They're going to regroup. The evil one and his remaining subservient elite will again reemerge in the future. And that's on page, the timeline of that, I believe, I've put on page 30. We'll get to that in a minute. But that future time point's on page 30. And when they reemerge, they will emerge with a different name, but the same agenda. And what is their agenda, Greg? Again, like I started the interview, their agenda is to eliminate God, get rid of the Constitution, hijack America, and take Israel and control the world. That's the agenda. So now let's look at the timeline. Passover next year it ends on April 4th. Now, if you read Exodus 12, 31 through 36, you'll come to realize that it took 20 days, or it was 20 days when God opened the Red Sea. So April 4th is the last day of Passover. It ends.
So on the 5th?
So on the 5th is when Israel left, okay? Right. So they departed on the 5th. If you add 20 days, that takes us to April 25th, 2021. And that's the day that God opened the Red Sea and then closed it on Pharaoh's army. So if you go to the next page, this is truly incredible, because 16 is a timeline, and you're looking at it, and this relates to Ruth Bader Ginsburg on September 18th. And so what is the odds that on 25th we have a Red Sea moment, and on April 26th, the very next day, it steps onto the new world? So between April 25th and April 26th, if that isn't one of the most powerful and an epic and important time points for next year, I don't know what is. But I'm telling you, what started in the year 2020, April, ends in April of 2021.
You think these people are going to be prosecuted?
Well, I think you're going to see people dying, jumping from buildings, going missing, retiring, getting arrested. Who knows? All of the above, some of the above. But all I'm telling you is that come May of next year, or technically, if we go to page 17, it would be exactly beginning April 27th. That would be the first day that we see the true start of God's new era.
And how long does this buy us?
Time of spring
before the nasty, before the Antichrist shows up? How long does this buy us?
Let's get to that in just a few minutes, Chris. So let me just read page 17 because I do want to cover that in a little more detail.
Okay.
So basically, spring brings page 17. Spring brings the biggest move of God's Spirit ever in the history of this world. One of God's biggest surprises ever to hit the elite who have manipulated the price of everything for generations. The markets will crash and Goliath will fall. God's people will begin to rise up in America and the world. Spring planting begins for the November Great Spiritual Harvest.
Yay.
So that is what's coming. Now, so during that time from United States is supposed to be like a safe haven because it's got Israel's back, and so the two are working together because that is basically how God has laid it out. That is God's plan. If we go to page 18, now this talks about the 7 seals. And again, so we've talked about this is in our last interview, so I'll summarize real briefly. But the first seal was the coronavirus. The second seal is opened as well, and that was when violence erupted and peace was taken from the earth. The third seal is where we're at right now. So the third seal is taking a little time. So the third seal is opened with the March crash and oil going to zero in the month later. And then the dollar actually topping at that time point. And now, as the third seal continues, we're going to see another crash going in. I believe comes in 2021, and that crash is going to cause gold, silver, and the cryptocurrencies to multiply in price because again, God is involved. And then from that time point, as we progress, then there's seals 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I would recommend you review page 19 and 20 because that talks about the 7 trumpets and 7 bowls. And if that doesn't scare you with mountains disappearing, islands disappearing, hail the size 100-pound hail falling, I don't know what would scare you, but those are things that are coming upon the earth. So it's so critical and to understand it's important to prepare for what is coming upon the earth.
And they're already in news reports talking about food shortages. And if you look at what's going on with some of the, free food pantries, they doubled. They're lining up for miles for food. The unemployment rate is now, good news, it's less than 1 million filing for unemployment every week.
They barely show it, but you see it maybe on Zero Hedge and things. But it's so sad. You see, like there's so many businesses, small businesses that are out of business right now, Greg. These people, these small businesses have what's called families, and they have employees who have families, and now they don't have jobs, and they have still kids who need food. And it breaks my heart to see what is going on in this world, and that's what these people want to do. They want to keep everybody poor. They want to keep the price of silver, gold worth nothing. They want to keep perpetuating their paper fake monetary game and keep everybody poor and have them in control. And then they want to do a reset on top of that yet.
The reset is communism. Right. You don't own anything. Martin Armstrong came on and talked about this. You don't own anything. This is This is the World Economic Forum in Davos. You don't own anything. There's only a few select people who get to own something. We control everything. We give you a universal basic income. Oh, you won't take that mandatory vaccine? We're going to starve you out. We're going to cut off your money. I mean, this is evil. But this has all been postponed. We're going to get to that in just a minute. This is all. We're going to buy some time for people to believe in God and worship and come back to the Lord. And, this is going to be something the Lord's doing, not Donald Trump.
Right, because everything that's about to happen, including what's going to happen to Trump, is going to be for God's glory. I repeat, it's going to be for God's glory. And it's to wake people up. And then when God brings his glory, he brings his blessings. Okay. So none of God's people are going to be suffering. So these things that they're trying to bring are going to be changed because of what's coming as an awakening. It's not a reset. The awakening is what's coming. And the God's church will be blessed, and we're going to have a window of time to do things that are necessary in preparation for then the arrival of evil and antichrist on the earth. But that's again in God's time, not in their time. And God's, when it's going to come on the earth, by that time God's church has prepared, and they're all set for it, and then it can happen, but not a day early. And that is how God operates. Briefly on the stock market, again, so it's a 124, 421, 124, 421. The cycle. The cycle always crashes on a back cycle, a 421 cycle. So that would take, if the markets are going to crash, if this, again, don't use this as trade advice, but if the markets are going to crash and we've got a third cycle down, that would take us into June of 2021, with it crash starting somewhere April into May of next year, which would coordinate beautifully with that end of April time point, April 25th, 26th, based on the flood and on Noah's cycle. So in the meantime, we could see the Dow continue to progress higher. We could see, I got here maybe as high as 33 to 34,000 on the Dow before it crashes. That's possible. So all I'm saying is, just the market itself is I don't watch it that closely. So I'm just using the cycle counts to give you the time window for right now for June of 2021. And after that, if it's related to the crash of 1929, that means that also the year 2022 is going to be horrible also in terms of a crash. Bottom line is, the place not to be is in the paper fake stock market, and the place to be is God's money, gold, silver, and again, not that cryptos are God's money, but they are a transition into this new monetary system. And here is how amazing God is, Greg. If you look at page 22, look at the US dollar chart. I'm giving you this and your viewers for free because I want you to see how amazing this is, okay? So you've got Yom Kippur, the start of the new year. And that on that exact day is the first day that the US dollar dropped. And remember, our last interview was on October 2nd, Greg, and I said the US dollar's got a down cycle beginning on Yom Kippur. And look at it. It's on life support right now, about to plunge down through 92.
It did go below 92, did it not?
Yeah, exactly.
On Friday, it went below 92.
Yeah, so it's basically just went below it, and it's on life support. So the dollar is in a, and we talked about this before, it goes back to 49 years. When Nixon detached it from gold. And so now we're in a 49-year, we're in the 50th year, which began in August of this year. So the dollar is in a Jubilee debt cycle.
It's a Federal Reserve note. It's a debt.
Yes, it's a debt. It's a
unit of debt
instrument backed by nothing except, actually,
debt.
This is critical. The US dollar is backed by nothing except two words: faith and confidence. Okay? Greg, think about this. When Trump wins and the election goes through, or all these information that's coming about the fraud and the dominoes that are wobbling right now, when this information comes out, if you don't think that's going to shake the two words faith and confidence in the U.S. financial system, I don't know what will. So why else would gold, silver go crazy vertical? Because these events are about to go down.
Wow.
And so so faith and confidence, if that is shaken in the dollar, God's money will multiply, and so will the cryptocurrencies. And that's just because those three things are exactly opposite the paper system. And it appears, in the short term, they're going to sacrifice the dollar for the stock market, and then ultimately next year both will crash. But again, God's words on silver on page 23, gold goes off the charts and silver becomes the new item of economic security that opens a new door to luxury for those who have attained this precious metal. So that's the word for silver.
And just to let you know too, Mnuchin has been out saying, and also I think McConnell, oh, we don't need that. They were talking about 1.9 billion, and Pelosi wanted 2 trillion. I'm sorry, 1.9 trillion, 1.8 trillion more after all the trillions we've already done of the stimulus. And now they're talking about, well, you don't need that much. We don't need we need maybe 700 billion or maybe, or not even that. The Mnuchin, the secretary, is a little worried about all the money printing.
Yeah.
And he's worried about the dollar tanking. He must be worried about the dollar. They want it to tank some. They don't want it to tank 40%. They don't want it to tank. No. They don't want it really strong, but they don't want it really weak either.
And it's interesting. Again, that's the problem that, when you do cycles, it's like current day. Like I can have cycles on precious metals. The problem is that when they've been manipulating stuff forever, you can have cycles, but they don't really help sometimes when the prices are just, where there's minuscule movements because they're manipulating it so much. And right now, I believe we're at endgame. And so when God gets involved between now and April, don't be surprised that you see stupid happen. And when I say stupid, I mean stupid prices that we've dreamed about, but we've never seen. And that's, I think, where we're headed here very, very soon.
For gold and silver.
And we're not far. Yeah, yes, gold and silver, exactly. So it's very, very exciting, what's coming and what's about to happen, just because, again, and it's all related to faith and confidence. And boy, if the truth comes out, Greg, and that first domino comes down,
when the truth comes out,
correct.
Bo, that's why I started out this whole presentation talking about how this is the real world, folks. I like to deal with data and facts. I'm a Christian. I'm not Bo. I'm not a prophet. I'm not an analyst of God's scriptural time. But sources, facts, this thing's coming apart. This thing is breaking up. Houston, we have a problem.
What happened, but even think about what happened at Passover, right? So Pharaoh releases all of Israel and they leave, but then he changes his mind again because that's what Satan does, right? And then he goes on to try to kill them all. So this is a fight to the death, Craig. This is not going to end until April.
Dude, this is what you said on election night because I had you on as a guest. I had on Gerald Salente and a few other people, Alex Newman. And when you said that, I had you on at the beginning and I had you on at the end. He goes, Greg, you just need to sit back and relax. This is going to be a fight to the death. And I thought, that's a little dramatic, but absolutely spot on. Not that I didn't believe you. I just didn't understand the gravity. I didn't understand that new era of time. Wow, that's a little dramatic, but boy, isn't that what we have right now?
Right, and the new era of time directly relates to the 400-year cycle of Israel when the Mayflower landed. It directly relates to the Noah cycle, coronavirus. And no, actually, sorry. Actually, what I wanted to say was it directly relates to the opening of the first seal. Okay, the first seal of Revelation was the coronavirus. When that seal opened, then everything in our world changes forever. It'll never be the same because it says in the Bible when the first seal opens, the world will never be the same. And then it takes numerous years, multiple years before these seals to open, and currently we are in the third seal.
That clearly happened. That clearly happened.
Absolutely it did. And then on page 4, we talk about God's kingdom. I've shown this in your chart before on several other presentations I've had with you. But basically, in a nutshell, the story was written from the beginning. Daniel gave the story to Nebuchadnezzar. It ends with the United States and the papacy trying to come together to bring on a new world order. But basically, and that statue that you look at on page 24, that's basically Babylon, okay? It says in the Bible, get out of her. And everyone's trying to figure out what her is, okay? Let me be very simple. Her is man. Her is flesh, okay? It's the flesh. It's because what Satan can control is the flesh. It's your flesh, but he can't control your spirit, okay? And so when it says get out of Babylon, it's all those kingdoms, it's everything. Because when you're in the spirit, when you pray to God, you're in the spirit, you're with God. When you're in the flesh, you're susceptible because your brain is working, and that's where Satan can try to control you. But God, when he talks and he sees you at the end days, he knows your heart, not your brain, because he knows your brain was messed up pretty bad. And so God always looks at a man's heart, and he looks at Trump's heart, and he knows Trump has a good heart, because even David was a sinner. King David killed his best friend to be with his wife, but he was still king.
That's Sheba.
So the point is that, get out of her and be in the spirit, and that's what's coming is a spiritual kingdom is birth, and that's what we're going to talk. And so when God takes down this Goliath, takes down this statue, he's going to rule and reign on this earth for 1,000 years, and that's page 25. So let's go to now. This is
Oh, this is my question.
actually
How much time do we buy with this new era of
right.
time?
So we're there. We're getting there right now. So
Okay.
page 26. Okay. I've had this for a few years, and I'm finally going to release this. This is something I think people are going to find very interesting.
Wow, new, good.
October 9th of 2009, you've got Obama basically given a Nobel Peace Prize. The first question I have is for what? Because he didn't do anything. He's basically just got elected, but he got a Nobel Peace Prize on that exact day. But I will show you and your viewers how critically important that day was based on Daniel's cycle timeline. Now, this is not Daniel's timeline is not happening yet. I'm just using the time window that Daniel laid out. It's a 1,260-day cycle multiplied by 2 with a 30 and a 45-day window. So now, on March 22nd, exactly 1,260 days later, Obama lands in Israel. What a coincidence. Exactly on the day of Daniel's timeline. Then 30 days later, he signs a $10 billion deal for nuclear bombs in Europe. So then now we get to the next 1,260-day cycle. The next 1,260-day cycle lands on precisely, now again, there's links for each one of these, so I'm not making this up. Please click the link and you can see the exact article that was written to reference each one of these points. On October 2nd of 2016, 1,260 days later, Obama formally hands over to the United Nations the internet. And that is critical for control because you have to have the internet to control everything for information. And that's also a key point.
And we can't get that back.
Right. And that's critical to understand because that's for related to cryptocurrencies, because you have to understand, right? The mark of the beast, when it comes online, it's about information. And so you won't be able to log into the internet without having the mark. So a lot of these people by that time are going to be multimillionaires and billionaires who bought all these cryptocurrencies, right? But when the mark of the beast comes online, which is not tomorrow yet, I'll give you the timeline when I think it's going to happen. But when this mark of the beast comes online, you might be a billionaire, but you're going to have to sell your soul to take the mark of the beast to go get your money. So you're going to have to decide what's more important, eternity or your money. And basically that goes back to the very beginning. What we talked about, is I'll give you the world, but you have to bow down to me. That's really why, gold and silver ultimately are God's money, because you don't need a chip to go access them. Where cryptocurrencies, they may not be able to control the blockchain, but they can control your ability to log in. And that is so critical. Now, this is the last part that blew my mind, which just came to me the other day when I was putting this live together. So I pull up the last day, and the last day of the cycle so the last day comes up on November 16th to complete the precise last day of the cycle. What are the chances of this happening, Greg? Obama just lost the presidency, and then Trump becomes president. Or is it 8 days later, Obama just randomly takes a flight to Greece.
Zeus,
Satan, home of the gods.
Why
would he do that?
Little g gods.
Why would he do little g gods? And this is his last trip. So his last thing he signs is the internet over to the UN, and then the exact last day of the cycle, he shows up. Well, he just lost the presidency. He shows up randomly to Greece, to home of the gods. Okay, that's just freaky, Greg. I don't know what to tell you, but that's called a cycle. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next cycle. Now we get to the Trump cycle. We've talked about this before. So Trump wins the election November 8th. You got 1,260 days go by. And then this is really important because this is all about the birthing of God's church. Christ does not return until God's church is birthed and alive. Okay, so next year, 2021, God's church is only 1 year old. Right now, God's church is not even a year old. Okay, so God's church, the dam, so in the Edenville Dam in Michigan, the Township of Hope, the water broke on May 21st, and on Pentecost, May 31st, is when God's Spirit again repowered the earth, came to earth. That's called the latter temple, described in Haggai 2:9. So that is the exact time point where the Holy Spirit came again to repower the earth, and that was the precise birth date of God's kingdom. So next May, God's kingdom is only 1 year old. Okay, and so now we're going to go to thinking it forward from the next key time point for this takes us all the way to November 2nd of 2023, and then December 17th of 2023, which is the final end of this. The cycle indicates Trump may not complete a second term. But again, that's only my interpretation. I don't know. Or maybe something else happens. I have no idea. I know that several prophets, including Mark Taylor, has actually stated that Trump may have a third term.
Which might come in the form of Donald Trump Jr.
Right. So is it Trump or is it a junior? You see what I'm saying? So we don't know. But the word Trump is potentially stated as a third term. Because remember, because the United States will be a safe haven when the Antichrist is on the earth. Okay. So it's very important to understand. Okay, so the U.S. we want, as stated by Lois Pryor, is that the United States will be a safe haven while the Antichrist is on the earth. And
in biblical time, and there's a lot of discussion about this, but a lot of folks, and I believe this, that basically we are Israel. Israel would not be happen if Harry Truman, an hour after they said, we are a state, and Harry Truman said, boom, 1 hour later, yes, you are a state, we recognize you. So we,
correct,
in effect, are Israel.
Yes.
Israel and the United States.
Yes. Brother and sister. Brother and sister. Exactly. Yeah. Brother and sister in Christ. And that's really what it is. It's, we're together. That's why the United States always backs Israel, because we are one and the same. And that's why the Antichrist agenda is you got to take the military power first before you can get the golden egg. The golden egg is Israel. But you don't get it until you take the United States.
And that's not going to happen because Mark Esper just got kicked out of Secretary of Defense, too. It's another big, huge thing. Esper, correct, out. I think General Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, should be out as well after saying that he doesn't work for a dictator. Anyway, I digress. So we're on abortion. This is where Amy Coney-Barrett comes in.
In a nutshell, abortion is supposed to be overturned as well now with Amy and as in the Supreme Court. So we're supposed to see abortion overturned. Again, that's the word.
You predict it'll be overturned. Roe versus Wade.
Yes, so I'm not predicting it. The prophets have predicted that. I'm repeating it. I'm giving a time point where it could take up until February of 2022. It could take us that far. It could be much sooner.
They're only cutting the body parts out of live infants. Just so you know, Center for Medical Progress. You can look at it on their website. From executives at Planned Parenthood admitted they harvested the organs, the hearts, out of live babies in some cases. They're clearly organ harvesting. This is why they want this abortion up until the time it gets born and the whole deal. I mean, baby killer Cooper vetoed a law in North Carolina that didn't protect life. He's evil. He just won re-election. But anyway, just so people know, this is not, you can hear Planned Parenthood on the Center for Medical Progress. You can go look at it and hear it for yourself. They, in some cases, a couple times a month, according to one executive, they harvested the organs out of live babies. Nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, it's just that's the whole point. That's what these people do. It's sick, it's disgusting, but that's what they do. And back to the words of Lois Vogel-Sharp. Her words were very specific from God. God's words. A woman's right to choose is nothing but an excuse for murder.
Boom.
That's it. It's what it is. It's what it is. Call it what you want, but it's murder.
Okay.
Period. And then so now let's get, so this is what you've been waiting for as well, Greg, on the Antichrist kingdom. So the Antichrist kingdom would be after, if we don't have another term, a 7-year cycle, then the Antichrist kingdom appears to come to power in January or early 2024, and that would take us all the way to 2030. Now, and this is going to be related also, we'll know, because they're going to start rebuilding they're going to build the third temple in Israel. And that's one of the most fought over areas of the earth. Is the Temple Mount. That's supposed to be destroyed because they're supposed to build a third temple there. Now, the thing about the third temple is very important to understand because it was written. The Isaiah prophecy of the coming Messiah was Isaiah 53. So it's very important to read Isaiah 53 because he described the coming of the Messiah. And so once Messiah has arrived, and so he's been here, Jesus has been on this earth, you no longer need the third temple. That's important to understand. But remember that the Jewish nation was deceived by Satan, okay? And they're still waiting for the Messiah, which they're going to find out is Jesus. But they're still waiting for Messiah. So because they're waiting for Messiah, their job is to build the temple. So they're going to, in error, through deception, going to build this third temple, only to be stepped in with by Satan, where he goes in and calls himself the great I am. And that's part of the great deception. So that's coming. And so when could that happen? Well, page 30. If we do the cycle 1,260 days forward, so we're looking April, May of 2027 is the time point where we could see Antichrist step into the temple, if the temple is in existence at that point in time. So that's what we're looking for, because then from that point on, it's hell on earth. And from that point on, you've got Satan in control.
That's 3.5 years.
Right. Okay. And so that's why it's critical, absolutely critical, to be positioned, and God's going to let him have his time in God's time. Satan's going to have his time in God's time. But before that happens, God's church is positioned and safely, nicely tucked away in the mountains. And that's what we've talked about on page 31. We talk about how evil rises with good. So the wheat and the tares grow together, and very small. Again, most of the population doesn't want to wake up to the truth, but they have a choice. But everything in this world is about free will. Page 31. And then very, very important, again, what is the goal when gold and silver explode in price? Your agenda, if you're with God, if you're with God's church, if you're working with God, your goal is to protect God's people and his bride, and to build these arcs of safety. These arcs of safety will be built in the mountains. Right now, the person that I know is heading it up is Lois Vogel Sharp. Again, do not call her right now because they're not built. They're to be built with God's money. And how will you know to do that? When God's money multiplies in price, guess what?
And
get started.
And Bitcoin is not a long-term hold. That's not your core investment. That's a way to make.
Because of what I discussed with a UN issue. Now, it could come to be sooner, may not even, we don't know when, but the UN is the issue with the ability to log in.
And you have here a prediction on, let's go to fast forward to 34. You've made, this is just where the timeline lines up. Now people say, oh, you won't know the hour or the day. Well, no, but you'll know the season, right? And you'll saying
know the season. You'll know the season. You can possibly even know the year, okay? Because you're going to see as these things come to, like if you know the temple is now being built, okay? And guess what? You can figure out the year. You may not know the day or the hour. And I was very specific about that in a prior interview that we talked about, Greg. Okay, because no one knows the day or the hour, and that's referenced 3 times in the Bible, and all 3 times it's no one knows the day or the hour. That leaves month, that leaves week, that leaves year. So, but any one of those. But the point is, and season. So this can be calculated not to the day and not to the hour. Okay, no one knows that.
Your window is 2030 to 2037.
Right, exactly, and that's if there's a secondary cycle after the Antichrist, which we just talked about that cycle, right? So if there's no secondary cycle, it would take us to 2030. The point being is Christ died on the cross at age 30 because he was born in 3 BC. He said he would return 2,000 years later. That would take us to 2030. Right now, that would take us starting January. We have 9 years to go. So I'm just telling you, whether it's that day or not, who knows what the day or the hour is. And it's really not that important. What's important is the key word. Prepare, 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 because God is returning. The glory of God is coming to this earth, and he's coming to redeem the earth. Jesus Christ has complete authority over heaven and earth because it was given to him by God. And he's coming, the King of Kings is coming to redeem the earth. Who is he going to redeem it from? From Satan, from Zeus, who's been trying to control this world for generations. So right now the world is experiencing fear and hopelessness. But I give you what I know, and I will tell you, beginning at the end of April into May of next year, and then by Thanksgiving, the fear and the hopelessness will turn to rejoicing.
So we got some rough sledding.
Right, but we will, by next year, we will be experiencing extreme rejoicing and extreme love, as written in Revelation 11:17. And it states very clearly, "We give thanks to you, Lord God Almighty. You are the one who is and who's always was. We thank you because you have used your great power and have begun to rule."
Yeah.
So that's really important, okay? When you see this events come through into April, it's because God is beginning to rule upon this earth, because he's bringing in his kingdom, because he's the king of his kingdom, because every kingdom has a king, and he's bringing in Christ, Messiah.
Yeah.
And so in closing, Greg, I put together a little slide here, page 36. Israel is the golden egg, and the golden goose, the golden egg, that's the prize, right? That is the prize. What began in 2020 ends in 2021. And so I want to finish with this. Man cannot challenge God and win. Evil cannot overcome God's will. The multi-generational facade will fall apart, and mankind will wake up to the truth. Be still and know that God is God, the same God that was with David when he picked up the stone and killed Goliath, stating to Goliath, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the army of Israel's, that you have defied." Next point. What is impossible with man is possible with God. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in this world. Know your scriptures, the word of God, and know the power of God. For no weapon formed against you shall prosper, as stated by Isaiah. So do not fear, do not lose faith or hope, for God the Father is in complete control, and all glory, Greg, goes to God, because this was his plan from the beginning.
Bo Polny, an 80-minute, probably this is the longest interview I've ever done, but it was worth every second of time to be on. You do have a thing I'm going to put up at the end, your Bitcoin index. You have gold turn dates. You're offering a discount if you're trading that. But you've said in the past, and I want to hear it from you again, and you say this, it's a beautiful thing, because you say, yeah, listen, you don't have to have any of my products. You can just buy gold and silver. Right? I mean,
Greg, that's exactly what we've talked about, okay, numerous times over and over again. You don't need, if you believe in what I'm saying, if you believe in your heart that you and I, Greg, are speaking the truth, then what you should be doing is preparing, okay? Not listening to us, listening to your heart who has listened to us. And if your heart says these, what they're saying is the truth, then you should be preparing. How you prepare is, have faith in Christ, number one, food and water, number two, and number three, you should be buying silver, even gold if you want, but basically you should be buying precious metals and even cryptocurrencies. That's what you should be doing to transition yourself into this new era, so you will have choices, because financial means gives you choices. But you don't need my information, my detailed daily analysis to buy gold or buy silver. Just call up your local coin shop and go get gold and silver. But if key time points. If you're a trader and you're like, hey, so there's a key critical high time point coming in December where we're going to have a big spike and then a slam down and then another big spike that follows. So if you're looking for the key time points coming here in December, yeah, then if you're looking for gold, get our exclusive turn dates. If you're looking for cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and some of the great coins to hold, get my Bitcoin index. But those are for people who are interested in trading, not for people who just, want to protect themselves and their family.
And you've had people, you've told me this in the past, you've had clients do quite well trading, but they have a trading mentality.
Correct.
That's right. So, Bo Polny, this will be the slide presentation, which you can actually blow up, will be in the after the interview section on usawatchdog.com. I will link back to it. I will also link to your Bitcoin index and exclusive turn gold dates, which I've done in the past. I think there's a 49 USA code. I believe that's what it is.
Sorry, yes, it's USA 49. You get it from $99. It reduces it to $49, and that's for the next 2 weeks. So you can save 50%.
And those links will be in there. Also a link to gold2020forecast.com. That is, there's some free information there. And thank you for putting together. I mean, this you work on this for at least a solid week, if not longer. We're working on this for a while. And of course, this is just free. You just put this out because you want to get the word out to people.
Greg, it stresses me out. My wife actually laughs because when I'm putting this all together, my head's like all over. It's very stressful to put all this information together because I'm getting this information, then I got to put it in written form and then create pictures. It's a lot of work, but I'm just driven to do it, and I don't know why I'm driven to do it, but I know that I'm driven to do it because I'm here to push a message out to the world, and I know, and as you've seen through the past time point analysis, they've been rather crazy in terms of accurate, and they're not my time points, they're just my interpretation of what God has shown me. So that's all I can tell you. We are living in epic biblical times. It's very exciting to be in this time. The prophets would rejoice to be in this time point, and we live in it. So it's an exciting time point to be in. And God bless you, Greg, for doing this, for having me on. God bless your family and all of your viewers. I'm very excited to have done this presentation for you and your viewers, Greg. So thank you very much.
The late great Jack Van Impe, who memorized most of the Bible, was talking about how all the signs have happened. This is the generation that sees the return of Christ. Christ is not a mythical figure, as Alexis, who is Christ? A mythical biblical figure, as stupid lie.
So is Greek mythology, Greg.
Yeah, and Christ is the best. I tell people Christ is real. It's the best sourced and documented supernatural event that all the events in Christ's birth, life, and death and resurrection. It's the best sourced and academically sourced and documented supernatural events in the history of man. And that's according to Lee Strobel, who wrote the book, The Case for Christ, who was an atheist when he started, and now he's a big-time Christian. But anyway, Bo Polny, the links are after the interview section. Thanks for all your hard work putting this together. I appreciate it. We gave people a lot to chew on. I won't have anything on Tuesday because I want you all to watch this presentation. It's 80-some-odd minutes long. Bo Polny, thank you for joining us today on usawatchdog.com.
God bless you, Greg.